Nintendo has had a short yet monumental history in the realm of mobile games. From good old Pokémon Go to the polls, and also the ER when you get headbutted by a Miata while catching a Snorlax, to Mario Kart Tour, which I don't have a joke for, the company has certainly made their mark on the mobile market. With the forthcoming loss of the People's Princess, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, I've been thinking about the poor souls that didn't get their time in the spotlight. Those which have made their sad and lonesome slink into the pits of App Store hell. Today, we are going to take a brief look back on Nintendo's defunct mobile apps and clean the layers of dust off their gravestones. This will be incredibly valuable information that you will treasure forever, I promise. Grab your shitty iPhone 7 you got from a phone carrier rebate and get ready to make some microtransactions. Let's hop into it. Despite the 2010s kicking off the huge boom of mobile app success, Nintendo did not begin their trek into the mobile market until 2016. In fact, Nintendo's former global president, Satoru Iwata, stated in 2013 that Nintendo would cease to be Nintendo if they produced mobile games. However, after a less than cute fiscal year in 2014, the company decided to rethink their approach. In doing so, they partnered with DeNA, a Japanese software development company, to begin producing their first few app titles. Two of these apps, Miitomo and Super Mario Run, were released 2 years later in 2016, but only one has survived. Miitomo was the first of the twins to escape the womb, and if you were breathing and thinking in 2016, I'm sure you remember its original launch. The buzz surrounding Nintendo's very first app game was huge, and rumors were flying about its connection to Tomodachi Life, a 3DS title which shared a ton of Miitomo's developers. The app launched for iOS in March of 2016, with the Android version following 2 months after. Miitomo's design was similar to that of a social media website. You would create a Mii, which would be used to chat with friends through answering questions. By tapping on the speech bubble above your Mii, it would speak to you in a customizable robotic voice which sounded,
"If you could have one wish granted, what would it be?"
vaguely intimidating. Your Mii would either ask you a question, which you could respond to in a text box, or tell you a friend's answer to a question. Friends could visit your Mii and gaze at it like a trapped hamster, rolling around in its wheel endlessly. Your own little phone homunculus. You were also able to treat your Mii like a freaky little Barbie and dress them up, as well as pose them for pictures, called Mii photos. Clothing items were purchased by spending Miitomo coins, which could be earned by doing tasks around the app or purchased through microtransactions. If you were wondering when you'd have to type in your silly iCloud password, now is the time. Other socials like Twitter and Facebook also had integration capabilities inside the app to reach friends, in case you wanted your family to know more about you. For some reason, the app featured a single minigame called Miitomo Drop, which could earn you a couple clothing items and a few coins, but that is pretty much what Miitomo had to offer in terms of gameplay. Upon release, the app was deemed a commercial success, rising to the top of the US App Store and garnering 3 million users globally in its first 24 hours. By April of that year, Miitomo boasted 10 million active users, with over 30 million conversations having taken place inside the app. So, if the app was that hot and heavy, where did it go? Why are we not still slinging Miis around? Why haven't I connected with anyone in 6 years? Well, Miitomo had a fairly obvious yet fatal flaw, and that was the lack of content. Although there were plenty of updates to the clothing selection, the app itself did not have any real reason to keep users coming back. You could ask your Facebook friends as many questions as you wanted, but the luster and novelty of a Mii social media, or social media, if you will, wasn't enough to sustain things. After only 2 short years of availability, Nintendo announced that they were ending Miitomo's service in May of 2018 due to dwindling user numbers. Miitomo remains fairly shrouded these days, with its existence being mostly forgotten. Despite being a huge step forward for Nintendo, it did not seem to want to keep walking. In 2018, far after the release of Super Mario Run, Miitomo, and Pokémon Go, we had Dragalia Lost, the first Nintendo mobile game to not feature a pre-existing IP. Dragalia Lost was an action RPG app created in collaboration with Cygames, a different Japanese game development studio. The game is, in a lot of ways, a departure from any other app Nintendo has produced, before or after its release. It followed the story of Yuden, a young prince from the dragon-bearing kingdom of Alberia. The Alberian royal family has the ability to shapeshift, which allows them to make a pact with a dragon and borrow its power. Our main character's story begins when the sacred shard, protected by the kingdom's capital, started to darken. Yuden is tasked with replacing the shard in an effort to save his people. However, due to the power the shard holds, it can only be moved by a pact bearer, so he must forge a dragon pact and mow down any enemies in his way. Dragalia Lost featured an in-depth plot which was explored as you progressed through the game. You were able to recruit other party members, called adventurers, to aid you in your journey. Battles were fought using multiple different attack types which correlated to elements. Adventurers each had their own element, which would make them weaker or stronger against certain attack types. Classes were also a large part of each party member, with attack, healing, support, and defense types available. Special attacks, where the characters would shapeshift into dragons, could deal heavier amounts of damage. In terms of combat, it was D&D Pokemon basically, which doesn't sound half bad to me. I'm gonna need Nintendo to start working on Pokemon D&D. As you can tell, I haven't been outside in a while and I think it's starting to get to me. I can see Pikachu in the corner of my room. He's turned into a mind flayer and he's calling out to me like Jesus. Weapons were able to be crafted and swapped out, and you could allocate HP and strength stat upgrades when leveling up adventurers. The game could be played alone or in a multiplayer mode with up to 4 players. Raid battles were also an option where 4 teams of 4 could play. You would also assign each adventurer their own dragon, which you could gift if you wanted to, which is really cute. There is, unfortunately, a dire lack of footage of Dragalia Lost, which is bizarre considering how detailed and interesting it seems to have been. But with it being a brand new IP without any prior fanbase, it's easier to see where problems could arise. The game was said to have grossed around $50 million in its first 3 months, creeping up to $100 million 2 years later in 2020. Reviews on the game teetered from good to mixed, with some critics claiming that the game was overly complicated and had too many microtransactions. Speaking of microtransactions, Dragalia Lost was a gacha game. Plain and simple, everyone's favorite money sucker. You could purchase tickets, which would allow you to summon adventurers, costing real money. If you don't know what a gacha game is, it's the term for what is basically a gambling game. You could either win big and get a great adventurer, or rot forever after spending $50 and getting pure shit. Sometimes special seasonal or outfit variations of classic adventurers were available, and sometimes new guys showed up. Gacha games are often very popular. However, Dragalia's player base was unsteady at best, and the app never truly reached the mainstream success it needed to become a real, fleshed-out trend. Dragalia Lost was shut down nearly 2 years ago in November 2022. Dedicated players were devastated over the shutdown, and though the website is still available to visit, nothing more has been said about the IP since it was taken offline. For such an interesting idea, the game had a very short lifespan and little time in the limelight. I think it would be super fun to see the story adapted into a console RPG, but I doubt we'll ever see it get the time of day. In 2019, only 1 year after the release of Dragalia Lost, Nintendo sent out Dr. Mario World, which I'll tell you right away is the most to nothing game on this list. Dr. Mario World was a match 3 game that saw the player help Dr. Mario cure viruses by matching colorful pills. You were able to direct a single pill past obstacles and land it on viruses of the same color. Once all of the viruses were cured, the level was over. Microtransactions were integrated into the game via power-ups, where real money purchases would fuel a skill meter and earn you skills to be used in-game. Similar to Candy Crush, a heart was required to play a level, and once you ran out for the time period, you had to pay to play. Dr. Mario World lasted only 2 years before it was taken off the market in 2021, and I'm not all that surprised. Last time I matched different colored pills, I ended up in the hospital. But Nintendo will do what Nintendo does, and that is make confusing decisions all the time. Last but certainly not least, we have Pokémon Rumble Rush, also released in 2019. Rumble Rush was a beat-em-up style mobile app which heavily featured toy-stylized Pokémon, which are the best designs ever created for any Pokémon. Oh my god. Are you kidding me? Polygonal fucks. The app was based off the pre-existing Pokémon Rumble series. In the game, you went from island to island to complete Pokémon battles. These islands each contained separate levels, which would end with their own boss battles. The strength of your Pokémon was determined by their CP, or combat power, which would rise as levels were completed. The available Pokémon on the islands, who had random movesets and stats, would rotate out every few weeks. This meant that in order to complete your Pokédex, you'd have to play quite a bit. Your Pokémon would move automatically towards any wild Pokémon, but you could swipe to change direction or dodge an attack. Catching Pokémon could only be done by defeating wild Pokémon, which had a chance of being caught upon defeat. Pokémon Rumble Rush received mostly okay to shitty reviews, with critics saying that it lacked a real story and any gameplay substance. But I have to say, if you're looking into playing a mobile game for substance, I would suggest doing something other than that. For your own health and happiness, really. The Pokémon Company is usually off doing its own thing, and Rumble Rush was developed under the company Umbrella, which has been involved with many Pokémon titles in the past. With that being said, there is a lack of archived information about Rumble Rush, and I'm sure that's partially due to its 1-year lifespan. The game shut down in July of 2020, making it the shortest lived game on our list today, which is horrible, because look at Rumble Rush Altaria, you are all heartless. But that concludes this short video about Nintendo's estranged little cousins. I hope you liked it, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry it isn't that long. Murphy's Law was really in effect this week, everything went wrong, so here I am humbly presenting you this like frankincense and myrrh. Thank you so much for watching, thank you to all of my members, I appreciate you with my whole heart. Stay safe, stay wonderful my friends, and goodbye!